Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Marie. I'll be doing my April wrap up. Before I get started, if you are new to this channel, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below as well as the notification bell. And if you're new, hi, hello, I'm Stephanie. I do a lot of bookish content, but let's just get right on with all the books that I've read for the month of April. For April, I somehow read 20 freaking books, which is amazing, which meant I read a total of 6,973 pages. Out of those 20 books, I read 2 books that were 2 stars, 7 books that were 3 stars, 6 books that were 4 stars, 2 books that were 4.5 stars, and then 3 books that were 5 stars. So while my number was extremely high this month with 20 books read, I do think that the quality was definitely a lot more varied. I had some 2-star reads, I had a lot of 3-star reads as well, and a lot of 4+ ratings as well. But the thing is, I just feel like there shouldn't be that many 3 stars and below books to start off with, but I did do a lot of these books for my orilium readathon, which I did a whole reading vlog on, so I'll link that above and down below if you just want to check that out. But the first book I want to talk about is The Vicious Circle by Catherine St. John. This book I gave 4 stars. This book basically follows a woman, her name is Sveta, where she's a very famous model, and she's also engaged to this extremely wealthy guy as well, who kind of looks down upon her because she's not, you know, upper class like they are, and she was born as like a middle class person. So she's been trying her best to kind of give off a good impression and have them like her, etc. One day she ends up getting some sort of notification saying that her uncle has passed away, someone that she has not spoken to for a couple years now, and for some reason he has left this entire like wellness center to her. And unbeknownst to her, he's worth almost like $200 million. So she is shocked by this news, obviously, and because of the situation, she ends up going down to where he is, which is in Xanadu. It's someplace located deep in the Mexican jungle, and she goes there to kind of, you know, talk to his wife, as well as, you know, get to know more about what's going on and why she's suddenly, you know, the sole beneficiary of his entire belongings. And as the story progresses, she gets there and things start to happen with the people there, and she knows that things are just not what they seem. I really enjoyed this book. I thought the gripping, the thrilling aspect definitely kept me on the edge of my toes. I want to know what was happening. There were just so many like plot twists and turns. Like obviously from the beginning I was like, this person seems a bit sus, but I didn't know why. And it was really riveting, just like, you know, continue reading and just uncover it layer by layer to find out like what is actually happening and what is this dark secret and what is going on, because like the more you read, the more I was shocked by like what was happening. So I actually really enjoyed this book, so I highly recommend this one if you're looking for a really great thriller. Next book I picked up is Conspirator by Veronica Roth. This book I gave 2 stars. This is basically like a sci-fi reimagining of Antigone, and I really enjoy like mythology, which is why I was really fascinated by this book. Unfortunately, I felt very disconnected with the story and the characters overall. I just didn't know what was happening. It was also a really short book, so just when I felt like I was starting to understand what was happening, the book ended. So I just did not have a great experience overall reading this book. I don't think I really like these short novels because they're just, I mean, it was so short that they're just over 100 pages, so you really don't have too much connection with the characters or the plot or anything like that, and bam, it's done. So unfortunately, I just didn't really care for this story. Next book I picked up is When You Wish Upon a Lantern by Gloria Chow. This book I gave 3 stars. This book basically follows 2 teenagers where their parents own very different stores really close to each other. One owns a bakery and the other one owns like a knick-knack shop of all things, and what they're really known for is their paper lanterns where they can make a wish upon it, and sometimes it comes true. And the reason why sometimes it comes true is because Leah and her grandmother used to actually go out of their way to make these wishes come true. And so now their paper lanterns are kind of famous on the area just because people know that there is a possibility that these wishes will come true. However, because of her family business, they're not doing so hot, and because of her grandmother just recently passed away, she hasn't been doing these wishes anymore. But after realizing that their business is not doing so great, she decides to enlist the help of her best friend, ex-best friend, because of a falling out they had a couple months ago. His name is Kai, and she enlists his help because she feels like at the end of the day, he's the only one that really understands where she's coming from, understand the importance of this mission. And so now the two of them kind of like rekindling their friendship as well as potentially a romance, and it's overall just a really cute book. But that's kind of it. It's just a cute book. There's not too much depth to it. I didn't really feel like super connected to the characters. The plot was just okay. It was still a fun read though, which is why I still gave this book 3 stars. Then this next book I picked up was one that I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed it, and that is The Huntress by Kate Quinn. This book I gave 4 stars. This is probably the first historical fiction that I have read that I actually really enjoyed in quite some time now. So this book is actually really hard to describe. I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on, but the general gist is that it follows 2 timelines. One is in present day and the other one is in World War II, and it follows multiple different POVs as well, where essentially after World War II there was a Nazi who was called the Huntress, and she escaped, and now there is a group of people who are trying to essentially get the people that have escaped from receiving justice for all the horrendous things that they've done during that time period. And so now they're trying to hunt down this Huntress, and which kind of leads them to present day. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. There were just so many twists and turns. Like half the time I was like, who is this Huntress? Like I thought it was this person, but then there were just so many overlapping like plots and like stories that got me really confused, because I'm like, wasn't that just described also for this person? Like I don't know, like I was definitely feeling all over the place, but then towards the end when things get wrapped together, you realize why there were certain stories that overlapped, because it just made so much sense and I really enjoyed it. It definitely kept me on the edge of my toes. I really want to know how everything would go down and when these people will find out who the Huntress really is and how the Huntress will be taken down and like the ultimate like confrontation. Like I was so here for this and I really enjoyed it. I think it also helped because this book was set in dual timelines, so I got that like, you know, modern perspective as well as a historical perspective. So it wasn't like a full historical fiction book, but rather like a duel. So I don't know, I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend this one if you're looking for a really good historical fiction. So this next book I picked up is one that I was very disappointed by, and that is The Witch of Willow Hall by Hester Fox. This book I gave 2 stars. This is a historical fiction that I somehow actually managed to read through, mainly because it's a historical like with some magical elements into it, so it wasn't like a full historical fiction, but I just didn't feel connected to the characters at all. It's set in 1800 and it kind of follows these 3 daughters where it follows the scandal around their new country home, Willow Hall. I don't know, like I said already, I just felt like very disconnected to the characters. I didn't really know what's going on with the plot half the time. I did listen to an audiobook, which probably definitely contributed to that factor, and I just was like zoning out multiple times, but for some reason I just couldn't get into the story, even though it was like witches, it had some magical themes to it, but overall it was just not the book for me. The next book I picked up is Keep My Heart in San Francisco by Amelia Diane Coombs. This book I gave 3 stars. This book is also just a really cute book, similar to Wish Upon a Lantern, where it follows a girl where she's trying to just save her family's business from going bankrupt, as well as keeping her family in San Francisco because that's her life. That's where her life is at, and she doesn't want to leave and move. And because of her family business situation, she goes on this like hustler scheme where she pretends to be really bad at bowling but ends up being amazing and gets money from them. And then she starts to go into these competitions to try to get some more money to just really save her family business. I thought this book was just cute. There wasn't really too much to it. I also felt like the romance in this book was just okay too. Like I never really felt super connected with either of the characters, nor was I really invested with the romance itself. So I don't know, I feel like this book was just a really cute book to get through, and it was on audio as well, so it just like flew through really quickly. I think if it wasn't for that, I probably would not have finished this book. Then this next book I picked up is Barbarian Mine, which I gave 4 stars. This is a continuation of Ice Planet Barbarians, and I really enjoyed this book. Like I've said already for multiple times for this series, it is just a great palette cleanser. So if you're looking for a great smut entertainment type of book, like this is perfect for you. There's not a lot of thought that goes into it. It's just pure fun and enjoyment, and sometimes that's all you really need. That being said though, of course I'm continuing on with the series immediately. I already have the next book on hold and hopefully I get to the reading that soon. The next book I picked up is Lily and the Octopus by Stephen Rowley. This book I gave 3 stars. This book was just such a weird book. Like it kind of teetered between metaphor and like magical realism, and I could not for the life of me figure out what exactly is happening. So this book basically follows a guy who has a dog. Her name is Lily, and he loves Lily to death. One day he sees that there's now an octopus on Lily's head, and he's just like, what is Octopus doing here? What is going on? How do we treat Lily? Like, how do we get this octopus off of her in a way and make sure that Lily stays safe? The thing about the octopus is that it basically symbolizes cancer. So he would go to these doctors and he was like, octopus, octopus. And then they always look confused, like, what are you talking about? And he kept saying the word octopus, so they use it too, to kind of like make sure they're talking about the same thing, even though, like, first of all, I don't understand why he uses that terminology to describe the situation. Not to mention, like, as the book kind of progresses too, like, he goes on this whole like revenge scheme against the octopus. Like, the octopus starts talking to him and things like that, and I'm just like confused. I felt like this book was just weird all around, and I can see why people will love this book because it's very like whimsical and magical, and like I can see that, but I don't know if just like that's just not my vibe. But whatever the reason is, I just felt this book to be very like a little childish, to be quite honest, and kind of like cliche, and also kind of ridiculous at the same time. Like, I feel like it was still enjoyable, don't get me wrong, because I wanted to know what happened to this octopus, but at the same time I'm just like, why does this grown-ass man feel a need to just use a different euphemism for the word cancer? And like, I never really felt like it was explained well, like why he felt the need to do so. And I just feel like the whole thing just felt very childish to me. Like, I just couldn't get over the fact that this grown man could not even say the word cancer and like just confront and face the problem head on. He just kept kind of like skirt around the issue. So anyways, I wasn't the biggest fan of this book. I can see why people love it though. It just wasn't really the book for me, even though I still give this book 3 stars because I do think the writing itself was really well done. So through the next book slash series, I read the entire Calvo series. I did a whole reading vlog on it, which will be up later this month, probably in the next video or so. For that one, I gave the first book 4 stars, I gave the second book 4 stars, and then I gave the last book 4.5 stars. Overall, I really enjoyed this series. I thought it was fun, it was entertaining, I really liked the characters. The first book basically follows these sisters where things are not so great at home. Their father is very demanding of them, very controlling, doesn't want them to leave. Honestly, the worst father ever. Not to mention, he also happens to be the governor of their little island. And so they basically are trying to find a way to escape. And because of all the situations that happened to them growing up, Scarlett, who is the older sister, knows that the only way for them to escape really is for her to get married off and then bring her sister with her so they can finally leave their father's clutches. However, Donatella, who is the younger sister, believes that this isn't really a true solution because who knows who the suitor is and if he's actually worse than their father. So she's trying to find a way for them to escape properly, whereas Scarlett is very sure about this path. One day she ends up getting invited to attend Caraval because Scarlett's actually been writing letters to Legend, who is the owner of Caraval, for the longest time for them to come to their small island so they can, you know, experience it for themselves, but that has never happened until now. And now the two of them are asked to attend this Caraval session. Once they get there though, she finds out that her sister is now missing, and the whole theme of this Caraval this year is for them to find her sister. And so now she goes on this, you know, adventure to find out where her sister is, track down all these clues, and learn more about Legend and some of the players. I really enjoyed the story. I thought everything was really well done. I love the characters. I thought the plot was really fascinating. And as the story progresses though, like, things happen. And now I'm like really excited for Once Upon a Broken Heart because I didn't realize it's actually a spin-off series from this one. So now that I know, and now that I'm invested with some of the characters, that is the main character for Once Upon a Broken Heart, I am very excited to pick up that series and get to reading. The next book I picked up is The Dragon's Promise by Elizabeth Lim. This book I gave 4.5 stars. This is a book that I really enjoyed. I love Six Crimson Cranes when I read it last year, and I was really excited to get my hands onto this one. I have to say, like, I like the first book a lot more. Even though I still give this book 4.5 stars, I do feel like for some reason the writing just doesn't seem as mature. I don't know why that's the case, even though I read the first book just last year. But this book just basically follows the continuation of the first book, pretty much takes place right after, and she goes on this adventure in the sea with the dragons, and it's just a lot of good fun. I also for some reason thought this was a trilogy, but that is not the case because the way how this book concluded is very much a duology. But there is going to be a spin-off book featuring Shanari, who is the stepmother, and like her story, and I'm actually really curious about that. But I just want to shout out quickly this book, this cover, this edition, because it is stunning. Like, honestly, everything about this book is just so beautiful. Like, look at this, and then look at this. Like, how can you say this is not beautiful? But yeah, also I do want to say that I'm really curious about her brother Hasho and like what happens to him after, because the way how the story from his end too, like, I feel like there is potential for there to be a whole story on him and what he's going to do after, because so much happens and I'm really curious. So anyways, I still really love the book. I think the series overall is great, so if you're looking for a really great YA fantasy, definitely check out this one. The next book I picked up is Shift by Angie Hockman. This book I gave 4 stars. This book basically follows a woman who is the marketing manager of the travel company that she works at, and for some reason she has this feud with this remote social media manager, and they're both gearing up and fighting for this new position that just opened up as a digital marketing manager position, and they both want that very much so. And so their boss for some reason decides to pitch the two together and put them on one of the cruises, since they are a travel company, and whoever writes the best proposal after will be the one getting this position. And so now the two of them are stuck on this cruise together, this trip together, and they do not like each other. However, once they meet up in person, they realize that things are not as they seem. And all I can say is that this was a really cute book. I really enjoyed it. I felt very happy while reading it. I love the dynamics between the two characters. I do think that I really like love to hate relationships. I feel like sometimes they're just so fun to read about, especially when they're kind of like unfounded, or when there's just so much like antics going on. I don't know, just really fun and endearing. So highly recommend this book if you're looking for a really great romantic comedy. The next 2 books I read are Fairy Tale Volume 10 as well as Fairy Tale Volume 11. I gave both of them 5 stars. Obviously I love the story overall. I love fairy tale characters. I love the anime growing up, so I just want to tackle the manga and just actually read the entire story to its entirety, because I don't believe the anime actually covered the entire manga, since it ended before the manga finished, if I'm correct. Hopefully I'm correct. Either way though, I do want to check out the manga, so I've been just reading it slowly throughout the year, and I cannot wait to see what happens more with Natsu and Lucy and Gray and all the characters, because they're just so endearing to read about. The next book I picked up is The Babysitters Covenant, which I gave 3 stars. This book was just an okay read. It's basically about these group of babysitters who realize they have these magical powers, and they just so happens to be babysitters. At first they're just trying to figure out what's happening, but then they realize that there's kidnappings among some of the kids that they are trying to babysit, and now they're using their magic that they've discovered to uncover who is the kidnapper and fight him off and save the babies and save the kids. This book was just okay, to be quite honest. I didn't really care too much about the characters or the plot. It was just a fun book to get through. I felt like it was very short, and I'm pretty sure I read it in a day or two just because it was such a short and fast read. I feel like if I read it physically, or if it took me a lot longer, I would have just DNF'd it, because I really didn't care too much about the characters. But that is one thing I really want to stop doing. It's just that not spend too much time on books I'm not super invested in, because I have a lot of books I want to get through and I only have so much time to read. So I want to start to prioritize books that actually keep me invested, keep me engaged, and not books that I'm just reading purely because of the sake of reading, or because they just go through so fast that like 2-3 hours later I'm like, oh, it's already over, okay, I'm done. Especially because I do listen to these audiobooks on 2 times the speed, so that definitely helps with the number of books, but I definitely want to care about the quality of books I read. Then this next book I picked up is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This book was really good. I give this book 5 stars. I did talk about a lot more in depth in my orilium readathon, so again, I'll link that above and down below, so check that out. A lot of these books, like I said already, I read for that readathon, but this one I really enjoyed. I didn't actually know much about Jeanette McCurdy because I never watched the iCarly series from Nickelodeon. I was never a Nickelodeon watcher from a young age. I was more of a Disney person, so for me this person's name just did not register in my head, and so I did not even know that this was a memoir or like a nonfiction. I thought this was just like a random book that someone wrote, and I just saw that was being hyped up a lot, but I didn't really get why. Now I get why, because the things that she went through growing up with her mother, their relationship together, like the abuse, like it was shocking. And the really ironic thing is that I was actually talking to my boyfriend about something the other day, and he brought up an actor that was in iCarly, and I was like, oh, I was like, iCarly, like that's weird. Like I just read a book by the woman, one of the women who played one of the characters in iCarly, and he's like, what book? And I told him about it, and he was just like, are you sure this is the same person? I'm like, yes, like same name. And I even looked up just to confirm, and it was, and he was just like, oh, like that, I did not expect that. And I was like, I know, like, I mean, first of all, I didn't even know what this character is, but still, like the fact that he brought up iCarly and I just read this book was just like a weird like irony and like a weird coincidence, because I was like, what are the chances? Like I didn't even know this thing was like a show. But anyways, point is though, really love the story. I was super invested in the characters, and yeah, I was really shooketh by just what she went through. And also this is a really short read too. If you're looking for a good audiobook to just get through, highly recommend this one. The next book I picked up is The Night Olivia Fell, which I gave 3 stars. This book basically follows dual timelines. One is where Olivia has now fallen and she's now in a coma, but she's being kept alive because the state prevents them from pulling the plug because she's actually pregnant, and they want to make sure they give the baby a chance of survival. So it follows the mom's perspective during this timeline because she's trying to figure out what happened. She can't believe that Olivia truly just fell like that, and she's also wondering who's the father. Like, how did she get pregnant? Well, I mean, we know how, but like, who got her pregnant and what happened and all that stuff. Then it also follows prior to Olivia falling and Olivia's point of view and trying to find out like the events that lead up to the event of her falling and her untimely demise. I thought this book was just okay. Like, I feel like I've read a lot of thrillers now that some of them are just really engaging, and this one was just not really it for me. I felt like it was just a decent book. Like, I was engaged enough to continue, but I wasn't like super invested in the story or the characters. I definitely felt like this is a book that I just continued reading because, one, the sake of reading, and two, because it was short and I got through it really fast, which is not the mindset I should be having for 2023. Then the last 2 books I want to talk about for this video is Awaking Gods and Only Humans, which I gave both of them 3 stars. There are books 2 and books 3 for the Themis Files trilogy. I read the first one back in March, and I have to say that was by far my favorite book in the entire series. I feel like after that book, for some reason, the whole series just kind of like went downhill for me because these 2 were just 3 stars and that book was like 4 or even 5-star read. Like, it was just, I was so invested in that story. And these 2, I don't know why, like, obviously the story is progressing and you read more about the characters and obviously the plot's developing, but for some reason I just felt disconnected and it just didn't really grip me as much. I felt like this is a book where if I put it down, it takes me a lot of effort to pick it back up again. But like, once I did pick it up though, I would be invested to read for like a lot. So when I did actually pick up these books, I read them really quickly. It's just that whenever I did have to put them down for whatever reason, I would take so long to pick them back up again. Like, I would just be like hesitating because I'm just like, I'm just not interested. Like, this book is just dragging. So overall, like, my experience was just a 3-star. So anyways, these are all the books that I read for the month of April. Honestly, like I said, just some really highs and some really not so great books overall. Let me know down below if you have read any of these books before and what did you guys read for April. What was your favorite book that you read? What was your least favorite book that you read? Let me know down below. But as always, if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. Really just help out my channel. And if you'd like to see more content of me, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below, as well as the notification bell. And as always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.